I made a big boo-boo when it comes to putting this 13B together, and I put the outer coolant jacket seals in sideways. Now I'm waiting on some parts to come in for the 2023 WRX and waiting for the engine to come back for the blue STI. So I want to keep knocking out a lot of stuff on this Mazda. Now because I put those seals in wrong, I need to take this engine back apart, fix that problem, put it back together. And while we're in there, we're gonna be making a couple changes. Huge shout out to everyone that commented on the videos prior telling me to do X, Y, or Z things, because I am still very new to rotaries. I am still learning. We're gonna be taking out the solid corner seals and putting in OEM Mazda corner seals. Apparently the solid corner seals drop compression in the engine by about 30 PSI. And with this being my first build, I'd like it to be somewhat reliable. Funny saying that about a rotary, but I'd like it to be somewhat reliable. We're also gonna be swapping out the Atkins Apex seals for a set of E&Js and using OEM springs for the Apex seals, and then OEM coolant jacket seals. So I've got a lot of stuff set aside for the RX-7 right now. I've got a brand new clutch fork, brand new slave cylinder, brand new throwout bearing, Apex seals, OMP delete, OEM corner seals, the front cover. I've got extra Viton seals if I need them, the bin of engine components, brand new oil pan, brand new oil pickup, more gasket seals, polymer stuff, some ARP goodness, some Vaseline, and some oil, because we are going to be redoing this thing. I'm not going to spend too much time going over the disassembly on this. I'm kind of just going to disassemble it. Essentially what we're going to do is just go around, pull out all of these nuts in order, pull out the rear stationary gear, take off the rear iron, take the rotor out carefully so that way we don't lose anything off of it, and just go down the sandwich in the stack and start disassembling this thing. Once it's fully disassembled, we'll start doing the opposite and we'll start building it up. some reason this time it was way more frustrating putting this thing together. Part of it was user error on my end. So I got the first rotor stacked in there. The apex seals didn't really want to stay in on this one. These are the E and J apex seals that I swapped over to from the Atkins rotary ones. But my dummy self, and I know what you're thinking, who let this guy put a rotary together? I'm right there with you. My dummy self decided to leave both sets of apex seals on the table, so as I was grabbing apex seals, I accidentally grabbed the wrong one. And I didn't realize that till I got to the second rotor on the rear housing and started getting the apex seals in, and the E and J ones and the Atkins are two different colors. The E and J ones are like a bronze color. The Atkins are just silver. They're just little silver apex seals. So I got to the second rotor and I got to the last one and I went to grab it and I was like, why is this one silver? And I looked at the ends of the apex seals because they're two-piece. You've got a little triangle piece that goes on the end of it after you push it in. And I was looking at it and I was like, don't tell me I put in a wrong apex seal. And guess what? I put in a wrong apex seal. So I had to completely disassemble the motor, re-clean everything again, and get it going. I made sure that the coolant jacket seals were in the right spot this time, and they are. I used probably more Holomer than I probably should have, but you know, I think it'll be all right. The engine sounds like it's got great compression, which is good. It sounds like it's sneezing a little bit, which I was told. Yeah, my wrench fell off. I was told that's what you're looking for when it comes to rebuilding these things, so I'm pretty pumped with it. I'm pretty pleased with it. Now that we're at this point, I can actually get the front stack put back on here with the oil pump and everything. I'm gonna have to rewatch my video of when I tore this thing apart because I don't remember the stack priority of how it all goes on. I've got a couple shims, a couple like spacers, washers, and things like that. Everything end play wise should be the exact same. I can check it real quick also while I'm going through this. We'll get the oil pump back on there, etc., etc. And I'd still like to try to get this engine in the car tonight. That might be a tomorrow morning type of deal, but so we're gonna do our shim right there. Okay, so let's just do this. There we go. Oil metering pump. Oil metering pump delete plate on. The whole reason that we're doing this is because we're going to be using premix only in the car. It seems to be a pretty controversial thing. I'm deleting it. You do you if you're doing this and you're trying to follow this as a guide, which I probably wouldn't recommend because this is my first time. So we deleted it. It's whatever. This dude is about ready to go back in the RX-7. I need to dig through those bins back there and find the engine mounts for this thing, so that way once we get it in the car, we can obviously put the engine mounts back in. But we've got our ACT clutch, pressure plate, flywheel, counterweight down there. Rear main seals in, front main seals in, oil pan is sealed on. I did get the OEM Mazda, I just got an OEM Mazda RX-7 oil pan. With the RX-7 Mazda oil pan, I also got the shim or the brace. You guys will see it when I flip this thing over here in a little bit. But there's a shim brace in there that will help to strengthen the oil pan, because one issue with these oil pans is the sheet metal is so thin that they leak, and I would like to try to keep this engine from leaking. Look at that, you can see all the assembly lube and whatnot coming out of here. Fun, that's how you know it's all greased up nice. So before we toss that guy in, I need to get this brand new clutch fork in, brand new throw-up bearing put on, and then we can go ahead and get the engine in. I may do the slave now or later. I don't quite know. I don't think it matters right this second. So these two I absolutely need to get in the car. Don't look too bad. Looks like it's just 2 bolts holding the clutch fork on, and then we can get the clutch fork off. Where does the slave go? I'm guessing it goes on the backside of the transmission, so I think it'll just be easier to do that underneath of the car. Let's replace those 2 components. We'll get that shaft lubed up with some moly grease, and then we can hopefully just grab the engine mounts and slap this engine. And I have no idea how hard it's going to be in this car. I'm hoping it's a little bit easy, but I mean, we'll find out here in a sec. Tight fit, man. Holy hell, dude, that was probably one of the worst engine installs I think I've ever done. And it wasn't the fault of the engine, it was the fault of the hoist that we have. We have a Pittsburgh one, and the arm is, the engine bay is so long in the RX-7 that our engine hoist's arm isn't long enough. So it was about 2 to 3 inches short of reaching the bell housing. So eventually Matt came out and helped me get it in, because we had to have one person pushing up against it while another person starts to thread in bolts while we're seating the engine to the transmission. It is seated. I can spin the engine over by hand, and it does spin the wheels in gear. I need to go down there, put the slave on, put the clutch line on, and everything like that. We'll do that here in a couple minutes. I have some parts running through the parts washer soaking right now, like the lower intake manifold. Adjusted the water pump housing down there. So I want to get the water pump housing on at least right now. Then we'll jump down, do the slave cylinder, run the clutch line, put some fluid in it, and then I'll see if Matt can help me bleed the clutch just to make sure that we have good clutch pedal feel. Dude, let me show you guys this, because it was a huge pain in the ass. 10 out of 10, if you're going to be installing one of these engines, have someone with you to help you. It literally makes things so much easier. So engine is in, the engine mounts are in. I put the turbo kit on just because obviously I wanted to see it. So I've got the downpipe fitted up, the turbo on there, the exhaust manifold on there. All the hot side components are going to get Cerakoted. These engines run incredibly hot, like very, 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 very hot. So we're going to do everything we can to mitigate how much heat this engine sees. This engine harness is going out, and it'll be in a spare parts bin. I'm going to get the Haltech engine harness for everything in here. Get like the turbo speed sensor, the IRP knock sensor. I got some spark plugs tossed in it down there, and tested compression, and it sounds great. It sounds beautiful. Oh. Sounds great. I'm happy with it. It's all installed. I did my best to make sure that this 13B won't leak, but it's a rotary and they tend to leak oil all the time, so it's not a big deal. If it's leaking oil, it's got oil. I'm waiting on the water pump to come in from Japan. I got an OEM Mazda one because I wanted to run, at least for the cooling system components like that, all of the OEM Mazda stuff. I may swap to an electronic water pump in the future. I know some people do that. It's just a little spendy right now, and since I'm buying a Haltech, the engine harness, and all the engine management stuff, kind of ate up my budget, so it's whatever. Alright, cool. Water pump housing gasket. Go on somewhat like this. just like that. And then our water pump will sit right on top of that. That turbo sits so close to that water pump housing. Holy shit. So lower radiator hose, well, it seems like will go right there. So I did find the old one, but just for, yeah, so it does use all the holes. So let's kind of let it chill right there for now until our new water pump comes in. Then it looks like this is the thermostat housing, and that'll go right there. And then I'm guessing upper radiator hose, lower radiator hose. And then I just got the thermostat in today, so that's pretty neat. It's just, you know, we're learning. We're doing all the Mazda stuff. Baby boy, this thing's looking good. So water pump housing temporarily on as you go. Well, it's not temporarily on, it's staying on. I just can't bolt it down until the water pump comes in, but that's whatever. I got the starter in, I got the slave in, I got the clutch line on, and I tightened up the rest of the bell housing bolts. So, oh, and I had to engage the clutch fork. For anyone that has to do that, there is a little access panel that you can take off on the transmission to be able to engage the clutch fork to the throwout bearing. I need to go to the shop and grab my vacuum bleeder to be able to bleed the clutch line because it's just not gravity bleeding, so I can do it with a vacuum. Shouldn't be a problem at all. I'd actually need to go over there anyways. I'm kind of on the fence with what I want to do. I've been letting this thing run through the parts washer just to clean out some of the ports. The degreaser's doing a decent job, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to paint this or just like leave it raw aluminum. This is the lower intake manifold. The upper is back here. I'm like trying to go through these bins as we're putting this thing together to figure out what goes where. I know that's like the oil fill thing. This is the entire reason why I went single turbo, by the way, was all this solenoids, vacuum lines. This was the legit sole reason why I was like, oh, I'm gonna do single turbo. But there's like, I'm trying to go through here, like here's ignition coils and whatnot, but I don't think we're gonna be running these. I think we're gonna be using Haltech ones since we're gonna be using a Haltech ECM. Secondary fuel rail, we're not using that because I've got the Radium one. Cruise control, I don't know if the Haltech sports, I don't even know if this fits. It did not fit with the old one. Let me check real quick. So this thing would go kind of like that. Yeah, no, I still can't run cruise control with having that guy there. It's whatever, I don't need cruise control in this car. But I'm just like trying to go through all the bins. Like here is a radiator hose that we're not gonna be using. The upper intake manifold, which I need to clean. Like I don't know if I wanna polish this stuff. Like it's gonna take so long to polish if I wanna polish it, but like the upper intake manifold, there's a charge pipe that we're not using because I've got the Gretty one. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's just hard. Do I want to polish this stuff? Do I want to paint it? Painting it's obviously easier, but it would look so good polished. Over here, there's some like brackets and pulleys and whatnot. I think I can just clean this guy up and just bolt this on. I'm assuming this is for like alternator, AC, all that stuff, our AC condensers in there. I would like to run AC. Actually, yeah, fuck it. Let me clean this thing up in the parts washer real quick. Then we can get at least get this guy bolted on, which I think it'll go somewhere on this side of the engine. Somewhere, yeah, it'll just go right over there. Okay, so I'll thread in like that then. That's weird. What does that read? What does that pick up? I'm guessing it just goes on like that, so click. Yep, look at that, now they all line up. All right, well, the good news is that the bins are starting to dwindle a little bit, which is what I like to see. On the other side, there's still a lot of stuff in these bins. What is that? Like, what is... That's gotta be to like a turbo. That's gotta be like a turbo elbow or something. I don't know. So, in the engine bay, I got the new thermostat in, the thermostat housing, the water pump housing is set on there right now because I can't put that on until I actually get the new water pump in. The accessory bracket cleaned, put on, crank angle sensors, sprocket, and the pulleys. I'm spending so much time just cleaning all of this stuff, it's absurd. So next up, I want to jump over to some of the turbo accessories, which I just have on the ground right there, which is like the oil drain line, oil feed line, things like that. just to start plugging up some of the ports on the engine. For the most part, I think I've figured out where most of it goes. It doesn't seem too terribly hard to do. We're making progress. We're doing the stuff. We're doing the stuff, we're doing the thing. Let me figure out where this stuff goes. Pretty sure I've got it all figured out, like oil feed lines, things like that. I'm pretty sure I've got it all figured out, but so we are in the next morning. I've been doing a lot of cleaning of parts and I want to get more tossed on the FD. I also started polishing the intake manifold, so I guess we're going the polished route. It'll just take me a little bit of time, but I got a little bit of time before this car's running. So I went through and I found a good amount of stuff, and I got a good amount of stuff cleaned up, so we can toss it all in this car. So I found the oil filler neck dude, the cap, the oil filter housing. I can't install these two because I need to get the O-rings that go from the bottoms of them to the engine, so I'll order those today. I found the air pump. I thought this was the power steering pump for a minute. I saw line in, line out. For some reason, I thought this was power steering pump. This is air pump. I spent way too long cleaning that thing, and I'm not even using it. I found a swirl pot. I believe that's Petite Racing or Petit Racing, however you pronounce it. So we'll get that in. The power steering pump, got that cleaned up. Throttle body cleaned up. That's not going to go on the car permanently quite yet. And then the power steering pump pulley. And I got a couple aftermarket parts we're going to be tossing on here as well, just to get them kind of out of the way. So, like I said, I want to get this done ASAP. So back in here, start installing more stuff. Let's get this thing closer to being done. This is an audio test. Tanner is testing audio. Fuel stuff temporarily put in, so as you guys can see down there, we've got the lower radium fuel rail and the upper radium fuel rail, as well as the air control valve delete plate on there, so that way I can start mocking up where our fuel pressure regulator and everything like that's gonna go. We can start making fuel line and start working on the fuel system. This is where I'm gonna stop on this video. I feel like this is incredible progress, and it's like we rebuilt the 13B, we got it installed, and we started getting a lot of the stuff bolted up to the engine. In the next video, we're gonna pull off the turbo kit, Cerakote the hot side, the I guess exhaust manifold, I guess you'd call it in this car. It's not really a header, it's more of an exhaust manifold. The downpipe and anything else that needs to be, and probably the dump tubes for the wastegates. Heat control is massive on this car. You have to be able to control heat from everything I've read, but also got like the power steering pump on, got it all cleaned up. The pulley feels good on that. I need to order an idler pulley, the water pump, waiting on that to come in. That should be in about a week or so. As always, I am always open to suggestions from you guys, especially those who have way more knowledge on 13Bs, Rotaries, RX7s than I do, because I'm just going onto forums, reading stuff. Some of those forums are just so old at this point, so I'm just trying to do any digging I can. So we'll start getting some of the engine management stuff in here shortly. We can start getting that in the car, get out that old stiff as hell engine harness and replace it with a brand new one. I think I'm going to do the Haltech harness, and I believe with the Haltech harness I can still retain the stock gauge cluster, because that's ideally what I'd like, is to be able to keep that stock gauge cluster in there. But I don't know if the Haltech Elite will communicate to be able, I don't know. So I'm gonna have to do, I'm probably gonna reach out to Haltech before I buy anything, because if that's the case, we'll just do an Elite 2500 with a brand new S6 harness and the patch harness, because I don't want to run that engine harness. It's old, it's crusty, it's gross. So that is all I've got for you guys on this one. If you like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead, hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, whatever color turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be one of these corners, no idea which one I'll put it in quite yet, but with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.